Hello
Hello
there.
there. Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars in the Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars what we can get our hands on. This is the season 8 finale of Star Wars in a Galaxy. I'm Eli.
I'm Jacob.
And yeah, happy New Year to everybody. Happy 2022. We made it to the new year.
We did it
2022 is going
somehow.
to be, yeah, 2022 is going to be a crazy year for the Galaxy. We cannot wait to reveal to everybody what we have planned. Um, but something else happened in the last week of Star Wars specifically. Before we get into our episode where we talk about the retrospective, and we do a retrospective when we look back on the season that we just had of Star Wars in the Galaxy, um, I want to spend a little time talking about the Book of Boba Fett. Jacob
Oh,
and I
yes.
actually sat down on a Zoom session on Wednesday and watched it with each other. So we were both there just witnessing episode 1, Stranger in a Strange Land, which, by the way, will be spoiled. So if by some chance you haven't seen it, ironically, this will be coming out after the second episode of the Book of Boba Fett. So if you haven't seen the first one, we haven't seen the second one because we're recording this before the second one's released. But if you haven't seen the first one, I guess we'll put timestamps in. But
Yeah.
hopefully it's late enough not to spoil it for too many
Yeah.
people. So, what are your reactions to Book of Boba Fett 1, Stranger in a Strange
Um,
Land?
my immediate reaction was, wow, that was a lot. I have to watch it again. Um, because I really enjoyed it. My immediate reaction was I was kind of, for lack of a way to phrase this more eloquently, I was struck while watching the episode. I was struck both by how similar it felt to The Mandalorian and also how different it felt to The Mandalorian. I think the style, the visual style, really reminded me a lot of The Mandalorian. Obviously, it had that same look, same feel to it. And that was kind of cool to see, and it kind of makes sense as it feels like it's a little bit of a spin-off, not necessarily a spin-off of a Mandalorian of the Mandalorian per se, as I really think it really is going to have a life of its own, and I hope it's going to be a tremendous show because I'm really excited from what I've seen so far. But I guess what I'm trying to say is it is cool to see that style kind of continued and brought to a different, little bit of a different scene, little bit of a different story. But I also hope that this doesn't mean that any future live action shows, I hope that they are not all going to I hope that they're not all going to hew too closely to the style of the Mandalorian and now that the Book of Boba Fett seems to have, in terms of the visuals, in terms of the art direction, in terms of just the way it's shot, the way it's put together, just the overall feel of it and the atmosphere that it cultivates. Because while it is fun and obviously it has had a really good reception and has seen a lot of enthusiasm, I also hope that they continue to experiment and play around with it for future shows, because I think that in the Disney era, I feel like, although it is often divisive, some of the things that I've loved the most, like Rebels, have come from the creators being unafraid to push to a style that might not be universally loved, but is certainly untreaded ground. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what you said. I really did appreciate a lot in the first episode of the Book of Boba Fett. I'll say this to respond to your thing about the very much the same kind of style as the Mandalorian. I agree, and I credit that a lot, honestly, to Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau has written like 12 out of no 13 or out of the 16 episodes of the Mandalorian, and he wrote the first episode of the Book of Boba Fett. And I love the guy. I love what he's done for the franchise, and I love what he's done for the TV universe specifically. But don't we think it's time to get some new writers in here? Like, again, I have nothing against Jon Favreau. I just want some new perspectives. Um, I don't, you know, having all these different directors in there, Robert Rodriguez and Bryce Dallas Howard and Deborah Chow and Taika Waititi and all that kind of stuff is great. But the writing has still been done by the same guy like 13, 14 out of 17 times. Uh, and, I wish they would have something more of like a writer's room with like some maybe different perspectives. And I'm hoping we're going to get that with Kenobi and with Acolyte and with Andor. I think we're going to get that with especially the last two.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'll say this about the episode. The one big critique I have with it was, and I don't know if you felt this way, I thought some of the things in the flashbacks were a little bit superfluous. Like they just didn't need to be there.
How so? Like, what do you have a specific example of something you're thinking
Yeah, the
of?
one I'm thinking of is Boba having that honor duel with the Tusken child in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I
He
think,
loses, and like then he has
yeah,
to go out on the quest, the water and the beast, and all that kind of stuff. It
yeah,
feels like they were spending a little too much time in the flashbacks. That was a critique I saw Alex
yeah,
Damon make, and I agree with that critique. Is
yeah,
that yeah,
yeah. Personally, I definitely could see how that is off-putting because it definitely felt like a lot of the flashbacks they definitely took their time, and I'm not denying that. But personally, even though it almost dragged, I thought it kind of dragged at points when I was rewatching the episode. I watched it twice. I think that overall I appreciated how the episode was willing to take its time to to just build a picture, give us a sense of what Boba Fett's been through. And I think you alluded to something when we were watching it together on Zoom. You alluded to saying like this is the same Mandalorian formula where it's like show the hero getting their ass absolutely handed to them for the first episode, minutes, however long segment it is of the story, so that then it's more satisfying when they finally kind of take some of their own back. And I think I could see them doing that here. Uh,
absolutely.
but yeah, I didn't mind it so much.
I will
But yeah,
also
I
say
can
that
see I can see how a different perspective would think that's not the greatest decision.
I will say that I think my critique will be remedied when we get the rest of the episodes. I think a lot of people's like I saw a review from the Hollywood Reporter, and one of the first things it says is one of the biggest problems with the first episode of Book of Boba Fett is it feels like a chapter in a larger story. I'm like, that's not a
Yeah,
problem.
it
That's what it
is.
is.
Yeah. And
Like
so I feel
we
like,
don't have all of the answers. That's the point of this style of telling the story. Like that's like it's not a flaw. It's the hook. Um,
yeah, I feel like as being part of a larger story, it definitely left me wanting more. And this episode definitely felt to me like a catch up episode, like because it
yeah,
was
me
so
too.
heavily in the in the flashbacks was like we're gonna get you up to speed where Boba is, how do you get out of the Sarlacc, what the heck, what's going on? Everybody's losing their minds. Oh my god, Boba Fett's back. And then they're introducing the mayor and the new conflict. Which personally I didn't mind it because I was so just I'm a huge fan of Tamora Morrison and of Ming Na
Oh
Wen.
yeah,
So for me, I was kind of just like I was totally happy to just sit back and let Fennec Shand and Boba Fett just like chill out and do whatever they wanted to do, to be honest. Because I'm such a
absolutely.
fan. Personally, I'm such a fan of their actors, and especially Tamora Morrison. He doesn't have to say anything, and Ming Na Wen as well. You know, they don't. I feel like them as actors, they don't really have to say much to breathe a lot of life into these characters. So I was more than happy to just kind of let their charisma kind of carry a somewhat languid episode as we get back up to speed with the
Oh,
characters.
yeah, I can never criticize Tem or Ming-Na. They seem like they're both having the times of their lives doing this. I know Ming-Na's a huge fan herself, so I can just imagine, she's told stories often about her being giddy on the sets and all that kind of stuff. And I can just imagine them being like, oh man, we get to blow up these people and be, these badass bounty hunters. Yeah, man. This is they clearly seem to be having the time of their lives, and Tem is giving a really interesting performance as Boba Fett, and I'm fascinated because remember he started as Jango, he didn't start as Boba, and even though they're clones, we Boba and Jango are different characters, and but he plays both of them so well, and he just does Boba Fett. You give them so many layers, and I almost feel like we're getting an origin story for Boba Fett, which is weird because he's been through so much already, but he's almost getting this, like I saw people talking about his rebirth, and that's what this is. It's the rebirth of Boba. It's him becoming, one of my main concerns from the trailers was that Boba seemed a little bit out of character to where
Yeah.
he was in the OT, but it makes perfect sense now because that's the point. He's supposed to seem out of character because it's almost like he's a new character. He's
Yeah.
carrying the memories and experiences of his past, definitely, but he is a new man after coming out of the Sarlacc pit. I'd also like to make a quick announcement. I will be joining the Bombad cast and members of the Nerd Academy podcast on their stream on Thursday the 13th, talking about the third episode of the Book of Boba Fett. I think this is the last time I can say that before it goes live, but I'm excited to join them and talk about the third episode of the Book of Boba Fett. Whatever that may be, again, at the time of this episode, we haven't even seen the second one. At the time of recording this, we haven't seen the second one, so who knows what the future is going to hold for us right there. But should we get into our retrospective?
Yes, yes. I had so much. I was having so much fun getting and talking about Book of Boba that I almost forgot what we're here to do. So
Absolutely,
yeah,
let's do
let's
this.
get into it. Season 5 of the Clone Wars. We
It's
have
come
it
to an
in the
end.
books. That's a
Yep.
wrap. And what a season it was.
What a season, man. What a season. Um, yeah, it's one of the, yeah. Um, so I think we're starting with our overall thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to lead us off?
I'll start, yeah. Season 5 of The Clone Wars is a fantastic season of The Clone Wars. What I think season 5 does so incredibly well is that it builds on all of these themes that we've been slowly, subtly building up for the last 4 seasons, and then gives them almost the climax of their arcs. We see this in every single arc. The going to the end, the Jedi losing their way comes to a head in the Ahsoka trial, and the Republic encouraging worlds to stand up and fight back for themselves things kind of comes to a head in Onderon. And the whole how is the future of the Force persistent in the Clone Wars, that comes to a head in the Gathering. And droid sentience, which has been a building theme in this whole thing, has come to a head in D Squad. And all the Mandalore stuff comes to a head in the Lawless arc. All of this stuff is reaching its highest point, and we're seeing the what these tensions and what these thematic strands have all been building up to within the series. And it's it works so well. There are no arcs that I dislike out of these. Um, the one thing I would criticize about this season, and this is just a personal preference for me, is that I wish there were some lighter arcs. I like the more adventurous, the less dreary, the more exciting chase arcs, but I understand that they wanted to set a tone, and I don't fault them for setting that tone. It's just not a tone that particularly enthralls me. as much.
Yeah, I had a similar I had similar thoughts as you, Eli. Or were you done? Can I go?
Yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I thought that there are plenty of great arcs in here, but I think I guess I'll just jump into building off of what you said. Where I agree. I feel like all these themes and all these storylines and different ideas that have kind of been all these characters who've kind of just been building up the stakes, the intensity, the conflicts have been building up, kind of brewing under the surface, going dormant, coming back into focus, going dormant again. Filoni and crew just pulling the different strings, moving the pieces around on the board for season after season, and all of a sudden it feels like there's five checkmates at once in this season. And so I think for me that made the season feel almost too intense at times. Obviously, it was a very dark season, and I don't fault that for them. I don't fault them for that choice, but I think that it veers so heavily into these super duper dark, grisly, intense, climactic episodes. I feel like it does that so much that it almost feels like a little bit too laborious at times
A bit
to
too
watch through
over-intensive.
the season, a bit through over intense. And this is even as we've rewatched the season spread out over at least a couple months.
Yeah.
So you can only imagine what it's like when a new episode is coming out each week, even though I wasn't able to watch it that in that format as it released. Um, so I think that being said, the darkness, like the dark themes, the intense episodes aren't necessarily a detriment, but it's definitely decidedly tiring to watch compared to other seasons. Like it's great, but it's no picnic.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason is that because of all these themes and ideas and different characters, different storylines, feeling like they're all kind of coming to a head at once in this episode, in this season, it feels like the majority of the arcs in the season, and you could even make a case probably for all of the multi-episode arcs here, they all could be that crowning arc, that mega season finale for another season of the Clone Wars. And so I think that's
Absolutely.
that's a part of it. And but overall, I just feel like it felt so. It felt like there was so much intensity jammed in there that it overall honestly felt a little bit less consistent to me than season four, which is a little bit glaring, I think, for a show that at this point is decidedly in its maturity, especially considering the massive jumps that season four and season three represented. And this felt much more evolutionary than revolutionary, the way the previous two seasons felt in terms of how much is the show evolving between seasons, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And I think it's definitely a tremendous season. But for me personally, I thought it wasn't, although it had a lot of amazing moments, it overall wasn't as enjoyable, I thought, as season four.
Oh, so I was just going to ask you, is this your favorite season of the Clone Wars? And it sounds like
Season
no.
four is still got to
Yeah.
be.
So it's actually not mine either, and it's ironic because I'm going in the other direction. For me, it's kind of a tie between six and seven.
Oh,
Six and seven have so many incredible moments. I might lean. I'm thinking like I might lean in seven because Siege of Mandalore is so good, and then I'm like no, but I might lean six because it has more episodes and more consistently good episodes. So it's a bit of a toss up for me, but I can't wait to get to the post Cartoon Network Clone Wars because I think that's where the series actually really shines. The Netflix Clone Wars, as we call season six, and the Disney Plus Clone Wars, as season seven is. So you have your ranking of the episodes.
yes, I have my ranking.
Number 20, Point of No Return. Number 19, A Test of Strength. Number 18, Bound for Rescue. Number 17, Sabotage. Number 16, Secret Weapons. Number 15, Eminence. Number 14, A War on Two Fronts. Number 13, The Jedi Who Knew Too Much. Number 12, Frontrunners. Number 11, A Necessary Bond. Number 10, The Gathering. Number 9, Missing in Action. Number 8, The Soft War. Number 7, Revival. Number 6, Shades of Reason. Number 5, To Catch a Jedi. Number 4, A Sunny Day in the Void. Number 3, Tipping Points. Number 2, The Lawless. And number 1, The Wrong Jedi.
Wow. Our lists are very different. I don't know if our lists
Yes,
have ever been this different. I know we often
I.
have kind of the
It's funny
opposite
because
point of
often
view.
they're. It's funny because these lists are so incredibly inconsistent, except for the top two,
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
are
yeah. I
exactly the
think
same.
I know, you already know they're going to be the same because
Yeah,
but I don't think you'd have to look at my list to know that our top two are going to be
I
identical, or at
knew.
least the
I
same two
knew.
episodes, you know.
Yeah, I knew they were going to be high. I knew they were going to be high.
All right. So my list, in number 20, I have the Soft War. And even from the very bottom of this list, it wasn't necessarily that I strongly disliked these episodes. There were just a lot of better episodes. In number 19, I had A War on Two Fronts. Number 18, I had Front Runners. Number 17, I had Tipping Points. My number 16 was Missing in Action. My 15 was A Sunny Day in the Void. My 14th was The Gathering. My 13th was A Test of Strength. My 12th was Bound for Rescue. My 11th was Secret Weapons. My 10th is Point of No Return. And my 9th should be Shades of Reason. My 8th is Sabotage. My 7th is A Necessary Bond. My number 6, The Jedi Who Knew Too Much. Number 5, Eminence. Number 4, To Catch a Jedi. Number 3, Revival. Number 2, The Lawless. And number 1, The Wrong Jedi.
So let's talk about this. I think we should talk about the elephant in the room, which is the Wrong Jedi and the Lawless at numbers 1 and 2 on our list, on both of our lists.
Yes.
The only
I
places where
mean,
we're consistent.
I mean, for me, thinking about the list, it was kind of a no-brainer, even though they're, especially for me, especially The Lawless, they're very hard episodes to watch, but they're such good episodes, and they really make the most of the big moments. They really make the most of a couple of really important big moments, and they absolutely nail it.
Yeah, when I was constructing the list, I actually remember thinking to myself, so I wonder how this list is going to turn out. And then my brain was like, you're going to put the Wrong Jedi at number 1, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to put the Wrong Jedi at number 1. I mean, it's one of my favorite episodes of the Clone Wars. I'd say it's in my top 5. We'll get into this with our favorite episode. I mean, we can even talk about it now. For our favorite episode, it's the Wrong Jedi for both of us. That conversation with Anakin and Ahsoka at the end of the episode is perfect. I wouldn't change a thing. I understand more than you realize. I understand what it feels like to want to walk away from the Order. I know. And then she just goes. It's it. It's such a the visuals and the imagery in that episode are also brilliant, and the dialogue feels so. It's one of those things where it feels so wrong, like you don't want it to happen. But in terms of looking at writing structure and how the episode is framed, it feels so right. It feels so perfect. It doesn't feel like any lines just like, okay, that's weird. That's really clunky. Why did they put it in that way? It all feels like I understand why they did it like that. I understand why it feels purposeful. It feels direct in
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. My thoughts about the number 1 and number 2. The Lawless, I think it would be further down if it was just the Satine, obviously, but then to also have the
Maul and
confrontation with
Sidious.
Sidious thrown in there. That's just too good. That just puts it over the edge for me. It's like, man, that's a easy top two lock.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I didn't talk too much about the Lawless, but I'll just say, yeah, it's the fact that they can fit all of that action into one episode with Satine's death and with Maul ruling and with the Sidious confrontation is simply fantastic. And with Bo-Katan and to make it a cohesive episode like they do is just great. It doesn't have the emotional gut punch to me as much as The Wrong Jedi, which is heart wrenching,
Yeah.
but it's still incredible. Um, let's talk about some of our what I call our flip flops, where one of us
Yeah.
has it really high on the list and one of us has it really low on the list.
Those are always
Um,
interesting.
yeah, which one do you want to talk about first?
Where did you have A Sunny Day in the Void again?
Four,
Oh
and you
gosh, we
had it
gotta
at
talk about that. So I had it
15.
15 and it
Yeah,
was in your top five. All
it
right.
was.
What do you I mean, what do you think about Sunny Day in the Void? What for you gave it that top
Uh,
ranking?
so I do want to say something about Sunday in the Void, which is it's very interesting to me. When I was watching, so I actually watched the Clone Wars for a rewatch of my own purposes last year, uh, and I was catching up on it this year for In a Galaxy, and I gotta say, A Sunny Day in the Void definitely wins the award for most improved episode from the rewatch I did last year. I didn't remember it much at all, but I'm like, oh my god, this is so incredibly deep. This is so incredibly. I just remember me taking copious amounts of notes when I was watching it for In a Galaxy, and I was just like, holy cow, this has so much symbolism. It's so much. They could make this about them strolling through the void
Yeah.
and having to face, Mraz and blah blah blah, and have that be boring. But it, the boring part for me is when they get out of it. The boring part for me is the part that I suddenly lose a little bit of my interest in, although the episode's pretty much done by then, is when the those birds drop them off at the village. I'm like, okay, and then we get into the Gregor stuff and missing in action, which I also think is very good. But the void stuff and the things they come upon and the things that they talk about is such an interesting development for all the characters. I'm like, who could have who could have thought about such profound things in an arc about robots?
Yeah.
They're not supposed to think profoundly. And yet, this is maybe the most profound the Clone Wars has gotten since Mortis, I would say. What about you? What didn't stick to you as much about Sunday in the Void?
I mean, it wasn't that it was a poor episode by any means. I really liked how they kind of went there. They went somewhere with that episode, and they really committed to this kind of wacky idea. There were just a lot of other episodes that I thought ultimately brought more to the table. And while that episode certainly has its moments, and it definitely has its merits, it's very fun, interesting, unique. Um, yeah, it just, I don't know. Overall, watching it kind of gives me the same feeling as the characters in the episode. Like this, it kind of feels, watching it kind of makes me feel like I'm wandering around a desert, waiting to be rescued a little bit. Even though I think it's overall a good episode. So I just didn't see any reason to put it higher up. There's not really any major quarrel I have with it.
Okay, yeah, no, I get it. Um, let's see. Let's talk about sabotage. 8 for you and 17 for me. It's not as huge of a gap as A Sunny Day in the Void, which is probably the biggest gap of all of them, but it's a pretty big one. Talk to me about Sabotage and why you love it so much.
Obviously, as the lead-in episode to the Ahsoka arc, it definitely doesn't have the most merits out of all the episodes, I think. But overall, I just think it's really just all around really well executed. I couldn't find I couldn't find a ton of fault with it. and I thought it was a really good and fun episode. Maybe not fun, but it definitely drew you in. I just thought it did a really good job of setting up, the stakes, just the suspense and overall feeling of dread. Yeah, feeling of dread that those episodes have. So that's why I liked it.
Yeah. No, I get that. It for me, it wasn't about like sabotage's, I guess, flaws, as you could say, as it was like, oh, I gotta put this in front of it though, because this is awesome, and oh, I gotta put this in front of it. Oh, this is cool too. Again,
Yeah.
it's a situation like you had, I think, well, a little bit with Sunny Day in the Void, where it's like, oh, but I want to put this in front of it. Um, actually, there was another one I wanted to talk to you about.
Hmm.
Can we talk about Onderon?
Onderon, yes, because the Onderons were my four lowest ranked, and where what was your highest ranked Onderon?
Tipping points at number three. So
Ugh.
yeah. You had tipping points at 17. I had tipping points at 3. You had Soft War at 20. I had it at 8. You had War on Two Fronts at 19. I had it at 14. And you had Front Runners at 18, while I had it at 12. So yeah, you seem to enjoy Onderon a lot less than I did. What was it that didn't appeal to you about Onderon?
Can't really put my finger on one thing. I just kind of I just kind of didn't get I didn't really get it. It didn't really click with me. I found the episodes, I don't know, they were just a bit of a slog to get through. A lot of the characters and the interpersonal stuff, I felt that it didn't really gel. There wasn't a lot that grabbed me about the plot, the conflict, the setting, any of it. And the characters, a lot of the characters just weren't really appealing. So yeah, honestly, it just didn't really. I felt like it didn't really have a lot to offer. So that was kind of
Okay.
the low for me. That would be the kind of the low light of the season.
Okay, that's fair. No, I respect that. For me at least, Onderon, and I think it got better each episode. I think it was probably the most cohesive arc of the season, barring maybe the Ahsoka trial. But like, even so, I love seeing Steel is one of my favorite characters in the Clone Wars. I think she rocked it. And it was, I think the worst part of the arc is when she dies. It hurts me
Yeah,
so much, but I love seeing the dynamics between Stila and Saw and Lux, and I love seeing Ahsoka grow into that more leadership role that she's going to assume more and more these days. Um, I think it's such a unique struggle because often, this is the pinnacle of the, teaching the people to fight for themselves. These people already know how to fight. Now they need to know how to lead. So we're not teaching them how to fight, we're teaching them how to lead, which is a whole different thing because they already know how to fight. We're one step ahead with them. It's
yeah.
like the,
I
it's
definitely
like
thought that
the,
the strongest part of the episode was kind of the allegory of that part of it.
yeah.
Is it even moral to teach them how to fight? To like that kind of thing. But yeah, sorry. Continue
But
before I
like
have one
in
more thing to
bounty
say.
hunters,
Yeah,
but in bounty hunters, like for example, they teach the farmers how to fight. They already got that. They're already past that. They all know how to shoot. They know how to do that kind of stuff. Now they're teaching them, destroyers are weak from behind and blah blah blah. They're showing them the ropes with these things, and they form their own insurrection and they form their own rebellion, which is of course intentional language because we see the roots and we see how Saw goes from radical Onderonian freedom fighter to crazy, almost like almost a little crazy, almost
a little bit too radical.
a little bit too radical rebel fighter after the death of his sister. And I
Oh
think
yeah,
it's planted so subtly in this arc, and I think it's so interesting. And I think we're seeing in the Bad Batch now with Saw in the first few episodes that show, and then we saw it in Fallen Order with Cal, and then of course we'll see it in the Rogue One Rebels era, with fully radicalized Saul,
Yeah.
where he's like, so here's the thing, we're gonna disintegrate civilians and Imperials, but also civilians, and everybody's like, are you sure about that? And Saul's like, do I look like I'm not sure about that?
I will say then, I definitely, you obviously make a lot of great points. And I think it's not necessarily, I think objectively, these episodes are pretty solid. Like if you look at what they're bringing to the table, I think subjectively, I didn't much care for them.
They're not your cup of
A
tea.
little bit like, I don't know, little bit like cilantro, maybe, you
Yeah,
know?
not
Some
not your.
people
Some people
some people just
like.
really don't like it, and some
Yeah.
people like it, and there's nothing wrong with either one of those.
Talking about objectivity and all that kind of stuff. Let's talk about Point of No Return,
Oh yeah, this is a good
which
one.
is which is beginning your top 10 and is on the bottom of my list.
All
What do you
right.
like about Point of No Return?
I think it just does a really good job. Um, it does a really good job of just having this. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the whole suspense, peeling back the layers kind of thing. I've said that.
You are. I
Oh
couldn't
my
tell
gosh,
that.
take a shot every time I say peeling back the layers on in a
You'll be
galaxy.
dead
Goodness
by the end of
gracious,
Two in a Galaxy episode.
you would be poisoned. You'd poison yourself. But I just like a lot of the same reasons that I really enjoyed. Well, why I enjoyed Sabotage. Much the same reason it does a really good job of obviously
Sabotage,
on a shorter
Legacy of
time frame
Terror.
here. Yeah, Legacy of Terror. Yeah, episodes like that. You know, really building the suspense, really giving you
Yeah.
some jaw dropping reveal, some staggering new threat that has to be quickly dispatched, in which the heroes have to find creative ways to find it in themselves to step up to the challenge. And I think that while this is by no means the greatest ever example of that, I think there are better examples. I still think this is a good example, especially considering who we're working with. Like Meeber Gaskin, this guy who's basically more or less kind of created to be something of a goofball character at the end of the day, despite all the things that you can say about him, and a bunch of and a passel of droids.
Point of No Return is a tricky one for me, and we'll get to this in my least favorite episode. So we're at a Sunny Day in the Void, which is philosophical themes and all that kind of stuff about, consciousness and all that kind of stuff. Okay, we're through Missing in Action, which is a heartfelt episode. We're dealing with an amnesiac clone trooper rediscovering his sense of self. And then we get to Point of No Return. And Point of No Return's challenge is a bomb. And they're like, no, 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 no,
Yeah,
no, it's not just a bomb. It's a really, really big bomb. And I'm like,
yeah.
okay,
I guess
so
quickly, I would say that the reason I liked it, I would argue that it's not necessarily just about the bomb, but it's about it's really about the characters and how they step up and how they respond rather than it being about the plot itself. But I can see how it's less appealing.
in the words of Whack 47, so you're a map reader.
Yeah,
It's like
it's a little bit like
like
that.
I understand it's
Like
about
at the
more
end
than
of the
that, of
day, it's like,
course.
yeah, it is about a bomb. It is about a
It's
bomb.
about a bomb, okay? It's about a big thing that blows up.
I guess
And
the
like,
question is whether or not you're okay with that. And I guess I'm okay with it,
yeah.
and you're not
No,
okay
I
with it.
totally I my notes for worst episode is literally starts with Jacob likes Point of No Return better than I did. Like it's I'm not even saying like Jacob will I think Jacob will say he likes it. It's just I know Jacob's going to like this more than I am because I know it's his kind of episode way more than it's
Yeah,
my
yeah,
kind of episode.
definitely.
Uh, like the entire episode takes place in space. Of course, it's going to be your kind of episode. It's on a ship. The entire episode's on a ship. Of course, it's your kind of episode. It's the
Yeah,
same thing we were talking about in season 2 with Targo of Doom. Why you liked it so much more than I did. Um,
yeah,
it just appeals more to you. And that's totally fine. I will say this. We already talked about Wrong Jedi and this masterpiece. About your worst episode, which I see as the soft war. I'm gonna ask you this, and I want to see do you want. I want to ask you if you want to make this a tradition on In a Galaxy because I think this could be cool. What is something you really liked about your least favorite episode?
Soft War. I liked how it challenged Ahsoka and helped set up. I liked how it challenged Ahsoka and helped set her up for her big moment um, further down the line.
Cool. For Point of No Return, I'd argue it was 5 seasons too late, but like I'm glad they finally brought back Buzz droids.
Yeah,
The Buzz droid scenes
I
in Point of No
agree.
Return were actually really cool.
Where did you have Eminence?
Eminence, yeah, actually that's a good point. You have it at 5, and I have it at 15.
Hmm. I guess 15. Yeah, that's pretty far. That's actually they're
Yeah,
completely symmetrical where they are on the list.
they
Yours
are. I
rounds
just
out your
realized. Yeah,
top quartile. Or mine rounds out the top 25%. Yours rounds out the bottom 25. I don't know.
I
I
think it's
don't
a
know. I
little
don't think
above that
there's
actually, but okay.
yeah. I don't think there's a ton to say about it. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know.
Eminence for me, I just don't like it as much because it feels it's like sabotage for me. It's just like it's the hook, and while the hook is good, the reveal at the end, the Wrong Jedi, the Lawless, and the building up in the middle, the Catch a Jedi, the Shades of Reason, are more appealing to me than the hook. I think sometimes the Clone Wars may spend a little too long building up their hooks for my appeal.
Yeah, that's fair. I just liked
Um,
it. I loved seeing Maul and Savage kind of come back, do their thing. It did feel like a slightly almost funny episode in a weird way, but I think it worked. I liked seeing them just take control of this crime syndicate,
now I just
you know,
realized what I
do
want
their
to.
thing.
Now I just realized what I want to hear in the Book of Boba Fett. That Boba Fett and Fennec raid somewhere, and they're like, and somebody asks, "Wait, are you bounty hunters?" And Boba will go, "No, we are lords, crime
Lords, yeah, that
lords,"
was the best. Yeah,
which could
that was one
technically
of the
work.
that was one of the things I feel like the entire one of the things that appealed to me about the episode is the entire thing, despite being ostensibly a very kind of a pretty serious episode, the entire thing felt slightly tongue in cheek. Like
Yeah,
they were kind of just
actually, that
like,
wasn't even
yeah,
in that
we are
episode,
making
ironically.
yeah
But
yeah
yeah,
like they're kind
there's
of just
also
like sorry go ahead
there's also that line. So the only thing you can tell me is that I can find Jabba at Jabba's palace.
yeah
We're
exactly
like, what the heck are we dealing with?
yeah lords crime yeah like the entire thing just kind of feels like yeah we are doing this. What are you going to do about it? What of it? Like yeah we are making him a crime lord now. Like
Yeah,
the entire thing it feels like a why not episode.
it does,
Like
and
oh why
especially
not,
like I was thinking like there's a line from Indiana Jones, and I think it was from Late Raiders of the Lost Ark where Sala asks Indiana, "How are you going to escape from something?" I forget, and Indiana goes, "I don't know. I'm just making this up as I go along." And it felt like the entire arc, in a good way, was just kind of making it up as it went along. It was just like so, not the writers, but Maul and Savage. Maul were like, "So we're crime lords now," and Savage was like, "What?" And Maul was like, "Yeah, so we're crime lords." Savage is like, "We can't just be crime lords," and Maul's like, "Why not? What's stopping us?" It was the arc of doing things because you can. Do we want to move on to best character now?
yeah
Um, I want to see
do it.
something. Let's count down and see if we have the same best character because I think we might.
Well, I did my usual thing, which is that I pick a couple characters who aren't necessarily
Okay,
the main characters, but that who I
so
thought really deserved a shout out for the
so who are
season.
yours?
Mine are Ventress, Hondo Ohnaka, Ahsoka, who okay kind of is the main character, and R2D2.
Yeah, so mine was Ahsoka because I felt like it was impossible not to pick Ahsoka for this.
Yeah, this is like her crowning the
This
crowning
is
moment
her
of
peak. this is
of
her
everything that
magnum
she's
opus.
done in the Clone Wars. Yeah.
I truly believe that the Clone Wars season 5 is Ahsoka's magnum opus. It's the best. It's the best thing I've seen her in so far in Star Wars. Period. No offense to Rebels or anything or The Mandalorian. I love her in that too. I was just watching The Future of the Force the other day, and that lightsaber duel she has with the Inquisitors is still awesome. But her through that entire trial arc cannot be beat, in my opinion. She is, one of the things is like Dave was asked about Ahsoka appearing in the "I'm All the Jedi" sequence in 9, and Dave was like, "Yeah, I know she said I'm no Jedi in season 2 of Rebels, but in many ways, Ahsoka is more like a Jedi than the Jedi of the time were."
Mm.
And this is the clearest example that we can see of that, of Ahsoka being more Jedi than the Jedi.
Yeah.
Anything to say about Ahsoka, or do you want to talk about why you loved Ventress and R2 and Hondo?
Um, yeah, I think you kind of said it for Ahsoka again. This is just a landmark season for her, the crescendo that everything her character has gone through, just kind of building up to this moment, obviously at the end of the season. And it's tragic, but I think it is, there's a silver lining watching this now, having Rebels, having seen Rebels, having seen Mando. I think it's a little bit less sad now, knowing that there's the cloud has a silver lining, that she does come back and she does find her way and she does find a life of presumably meaning, doing something important, helping people, fulfilling her, you know, duties, even though she's not with the Jedi anymore.
Yeah,
Ventress, I think I had Ventress for this last season as well. Obviously, she doesn't show up as quite nearly as much this season. But I still think I just wanted to 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 give the writers props for what they did with her in the Wrong Jedi arc. I thought it was cool. I liked seeing her team up. I think she's a pretty appealing character, even as especially actually as the ex Sith acolyte, ex
the
Night
anti-hero.
Sister,
She works
the
very well as
drifting
an
bounty
anti-hero.
hunter, the anti-hero. Yeah, I really think that her kind of dialogue, her snappiness, the way that she operates, I think that she has so much potential, and I really want to see them do more with her because I think she has the potential to just kind of bounce well off so many characters with the personality that we see her have. Hondo
Yeah,
Onaka, again,
what's
Hondo,
not to
you'll
love?
love to see him. And I love in
Except
this
for if he's,
episode's
except for if he's in the Brothers of Broken Horn,
yeah,
then you don't love to see him.
yeah.
It's sorry. I'm rewatching Rebels right now, and I was rewatching that episode. I'm like, not you again.
Yeah. Personally, I liked him in Broken Horn, except I thought that maybe the character model could have used some work, but other than that.
Yeah. Anyway, go back to Hondo and Clone Wars and revival and
I'm sorry.
the Youngling arc and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Traitors, scum. I'm so proud, but I'm so betrayed.
Yeah. We really see him run the gamut of everything that he can be in this season, from someone who is really menacing and almost out of character, as we were saying, oh, kill the young ones, we don't care, to then teaming up with them and really kind of bringing out a little bit more of his kind, good, dare I say, altruistic self. So yeah, I just, always enjoy seeing Hondo, and this was no exception. As for R2D2, I mean, you were talking about droid sentience earlier, and in between the Gathering arc and all the other ways that he just put in work this season, the Gathering arc, obviously a Sunny Day, or the Secret Weapons arc, Sunny Day in the Void. Like, man, R2D2 had his fair share of action, and it was kind of interesting to see him not by Anakin's side. for a change, which I thought was cool. Who was your worst character or characters?
To the surprise of absolutely nobody, I gotta put Mace Windu because how he behaves in the Ahsoka trial arc is frankly motivated by the dark side, even if he can't see it.
Really?
It's one,
That's
yeah,
interesting.
it's one of those things where Mace is incredibly annoying in these episodes because of his refusal to act with anything else other than vehemence to Anakin and Ahsoka. And I think he's fallen down a little bit of a rabbit hole. He's fallen down the rabbit hole of this is how the Jedi should be. This is how the Jedi need to be if they're to succeed. I will not welcome any other opinion. You know,
Yeah.
uh, it thinks you think of the line, you think of Obi-Wan's only a Sith deals in absolutes, and you think of talking about me saying the oppression of the Sith will never return. You have lost from Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
And you think about statements he said in this episode, and I'm like, who's the real Sith? I'm not saying Mace Windu was secretly working for the Sith or anything. I'm not saying anything crazy as that. I'm saying that in his devotion to the code, he had inadvertently became the very darkness he was trying to fight against.
Interesting. Yeah. That's definitely a possibility. Um, personally, I never share anyone's anger or dislike towards Mace Windu. Personally, I think he's misunderstood. Maybe the shows and the movies kind of catch him in some of his bad moments. My worst characters, Tarkin for me, obviously.
Good choice. Good choice.
Oh Tarkin, oh Tarkin,
Oh, Tarkin.
man,
Or or
he is
or
just a
as
thorn in the good guy's side.
or as we should treat him because he seems to be comfortable treating Padme this way. Tarkin.
Yeah, I'd have to give a slow clap for Tarkin. He does a very, very good job of being really, really frustrating when you watch him and how he mercilessly just kind of takes down the heroes, even though he thinks that he's on their side. Um,
Which he isn't.
Obviously, for me, Satine, not particularly pleasant because I'm not really a huge fan of hers, to say the least. Don't find her terribly appealing as a villain or as an anti-hero, or when they want us to maybe root for her.
Satine Christ
Yes.
as a villain?
Sorry, I meant Bo-Katan. I meant Bo-Katan. I don't know why I said Satine.
Okay.
I meant
I'm
Bo-Katan the
like
whole time.
really
I wrote down the
confused for
wrong
a
name.
second.
No,
But
Bo-Katan, sorry. Not
oh,
Satine.
Bo makes a lot more sense.
I was such a
I'm,
villain.
I'm like, why would you say that when at the end of the episode she gets a lightsaber through her chest? I
Yeah,
mean,
no.
like that's harsh, man.
Wow, that my bad. I totally meant Bo-Katan. I totally screwed
That
up.
makes a
Yeah, no,
lot more
Bo-Katan.
sense. Meg, congrats on the engagement, and don't sue us. Um,
Meg, we love you. Don't sue us. Don't get mad at us. Especially not that I mixed up their names now. I feel like I've just put myself in even more hot water
oh,
now that I've
definitely you
done that.
have.
But now I can't stop thinking about what an evil Satine would look like. I think that would be a really funny idea for some kind of a
An evil
non-canon
Satine
what if
is
show.
an
Maybe an
evil
episode of Star
Satine
Wars
is
Visions.
Umbridge
Yes. Yes.
from Potter. Yeah, no, an evil Satine is still our Umbridge. Coolest new thing you noticed from the rewatch? Go ahead.
In the episodes where we see Anakin, one thing I really noticed that I thought was really cool that I hadn't really put together before was how apparent it is, possibly with the hindsight of watching this, having watched the Clone Wars a couple times, knowing what comes next, just how clear it is, all these signs of him falling falling to the dark side and kind of losing his light, losing a lot of his joy, really, before he even falls. How embroiled he is in the pain of trying to protect those he loves while also serving the Jedi and serving the Republic and trying to live up to the massive expectations that everyone from Palpatine to the Jedi put on him.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Yeah, Anakin's gonna tip farther and farther in the show, and it's interesting because I think in season 6 we're gonna see a lot of that as well. Him tipping farther
Yeah.
and farther and farther. Um, and yeah, and I'm very excited to witness that further in the show. For me, I forgot exactly how much the Ahsoka trial arc was also a referendum on the Jedi Order. I forgot how much the Jedi losing their way thing was so deeply woven into that arc. I forgot it was the very fabric of that arc, and it's like the thesis statement of that arc. Um, it, I wrote down in my notes when Barris says that it's the Jedi who should be on trial. She's not talking to the Republic. She's talking to the audience. They're kind of using
Yeah.
Barris a little bit of as a mouthpiece for their opinions on the Jedi Order, and I don't think that's wrong
Yeah.
in this case. I think they're delivering a very clear message. Um,
Yeah.
Favorite
100%.
planet? What's your favorite planet in the season?
Ilum. 100%. I really love
Oh,
Ilum.
cool, cool.
And nothing more to say
Um,
there. Just a really cool planet.
uh,
What about you?
for me, due to the breathtaking visuals of A Sunny Day in the Void and Missing in Action, I have to pick Amafar.
Of course.
Barren Wasteland is awesome, and I love what it does for our characters in those episodes. Um, yeah. Any other thoughts before we get on to everybody's favorite part of Star Wars in the Galaxy?
No, I think that just about
Okay.
does it. Really, another
Eh,
tremendous season.
Absolutely. Yeah. Uh, let's get on to everybody's favorite part of Star Wars in the Galaxy. What you brought me today is worth one quarter portion. That's right. 1/4 portion. The part of in a galaxy where we do a little something different. Um, it's a great fun part of Star Wars in a Galaxy, and I'm very excited to do it. Today we have a 6 degrees of Star Wars. Um,
Yes.
we have 2 6 degrees of Star Wars. I based both of mine off of the Book of Boba Fett, actually. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
You can go first. Go for it.
Okay, can you please connect for me Garazib Aurelius and Fennec Shand?
Garazeb Aurelius and Fennec Shand. All right, here we go. Here we go. Garazeb and Fennec Shand. Okay. Okay. Multiple ways I could go about this. I'm not sure which would be the most efficient one. Okay. Wait. Garazeb, Leia,
Interesting.
Boba, Fennec.
Good one. Good one. Actually, I don't think I can think of anything else. Let me see if I can think of anything quicker. Does Zeb actually interact with Leia? Because I think we might have to go Zeb Hera Leia.
I think he does in the episodes in season 2. I think he
So
does.
here's the funny thing. I'm actually just on my Rebels rewatch. I'm just getting to a Princess on Lothal. Like that's my next episode, so I don't actually know.
Mm,
Um,
guess we'll see.
I'm not sure if he does. Maybe we have to, but it's fine. I'll let that
Yeah,
go.
we'll see. If not,
What's your
Zeb
yeah?
Hera then. Okay,
Or
number
I
one.
meant like Zeb Ezra. I think Hera
Yeah,
meets her
Zeb
later, but Zeb
Hera
or
Leia or
Zeb
Zeb
Ezra
Ezra
or
Leia. Yeah,
yeah.
one of those were Zeb Kane, and you could any of yeah, you get the idea.
Yeah.
A little bit unorthodox one here. Could you connect for me, please? Commander Fox and the Crystal Fox.
I love this so much. Um, oh man. Okay, so the Voltex from Last Jedi. Um, Fox, Ahsoka. No, Fox, Anakin, Luke, Leia, Voltex. That's what I'm going with. Fox, Anakin, Luke, Leia, Voltex. Um, because or you, I can also do Fox, Anakin, Luke, Voltex if you could count the idea that Luke was on crate. I know he wasn't on crate, but he was on crate because he was projecting, and I think he was on crate actually in the Storms of Crate comic in the Star Wars comic. So I'm gonna count it.
All
Um,
right, I'll accept it.
yeah. Okay, my final one is please connect for me, Django Fett and Dr. Pershing. Please
Jango
excuse
Fett,
Dr. Pershing for his lack of decorum. His enthusiasm outweighs his discretion.
Jango Fett, and Dr. Pershing. Jango Fett, Boba Fett, Mando, the client, Pershing.
You know you can do there's a straighter path
Oh
than that,
no,
right?
yeah, Mando.
Dr.
Pardon?
Pershing.
Yeah, man. I guess Mando does meet Dr. Pershing. You're right.
He blasts his ear. No, that's
That's
actually
true. Yeah.
Kara, I think, who does that. But anyway, he's in the room when that happens. He threatens to kill him. What's your last one for me?
My final one, another pun. Could you please connect for me? Commander Gree and our favorite Rhodian, Greedo.
I was really hoping you were gonna okay.
What were you
Gree.
hoping for?
No, I was hoping you were gonna say Gree and Greedo. Um Gree, Yoda, Obi-Wan, Greedo.
Nice.
Yep.
Bang.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's gonna be it for this episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy. Thank you so much to everyone for not only listening through season 8 of Star Wars in a Galaxy, but also listening to In a Galaxy in 2021. We're so excited for all of the stuff we're planning on doing in 2022. It's going to be a great year. We have some great stuff planned. We're going to be branching out of the Clone Wars. We're going to get into what the era that Ken Knapsack calls the boot of the Empire era. And we're going to get into the Imperial era next week because we are going back to weekly. Yay, we're going back to weekly.
Woo.
Next week, we're going to be starting season 6 of Star Wars The Clone Wars with episode 69 of Star Wars in a Galaxy. I'm going to try that again, Jacob. You got to be a little quicker on the trigger. Episode 69 of Star Wars in a Galaxy.
Nice.
There we go. Thank you. We're going to be talking about death, actually. We're going to be talking about a lot of death and a lot of dark stuff. We're going to be watching what I've dubbed as the Order 66 arc. That's going to be the unknown, conspiracy, fugitive, and orders. We're going to be talking about Fives and Tup and that whole investigation on Camino. In the meantime, listen to us on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts. We will be there. If we're not, please let us know. Email us at slvinthegalaxy@gmail.com to let us know about things like that and also to send us messages and all that kind of stuff. We will read it on the show. Follow us on Twitter at In the Galaxy Pod, Instagram at Star Wars in the Galaxy. Make sure to, I'll post a link on Twitter, of course, but make sure to check me out on the Bombadcast, where I'll be talking the Book of Boba Fett, episode 3, next week. That'll be, no, yeah, next week by the time this episode comes out. And in the meantime, may the Force be with you always.